Hi, I'm Alicia. Welcome to Gen Tales, where genealogy meets history.
Today we're going to talk about some World War II medals and insignia, and these stem from memorabilia of my grandfather's. He was in the Signal Service Battalion, 5th Technician grade in the Tech Corps in World War II. He served just for a little over a year, 1945 to 1946, and he had been born in 1917. And this is a picture of him in his uniform. I'm not sure exactly when this was taken. I put in a request to the archive in St. Louis in January for his full personnel record so I could get an idea of his actual movements, his service. From what I've been able to discern from his discharge papers and the few things we do know, like when Grandma visited him when he was at Camp Crowder in Missouri, is that he had been drafted in, he had been trained, and then he was on the track to go to the Pacific Theater just as Germany surrendered. And then just after Japan surrendered, he was given the okay to be discharged, but it took some time because he went through other certifications. So I'm going to go through and show you what we have from his time in World War II and describe some of these medals and insignias to you. So, as I said, in March of 1945, Edward Mertz was drafted via selective service, and he had radio repair experience and understood German. His mother spoke German, from what my mother remembers. His parents had been Russian-born Germans, the Volga Germans, and so he understood the language, so it made sense he'd be the one intercepting certain signals. That's likely what made him a candidate, despite being married with two small children at home. In April 1945, he was certified for sharpshooter M130 carbine. It's a non-combat troop defensive training, and so that would have been the regular thing for the Signal Service Battalion members to have to defend themselves, even if they weren't in active combat and they were just doing the radio control. In May of 1945, Germany surrendered. In September, Japan surrendered, and Grandpa was approved for discharge. And when an Army member was approved to be on the track for discharge, they received a lapel pin with a flying duck or eagle, or I'm not sure what it's supposed to be, but it's called the ruptured duck. And this was my grandfather's ruptured duck that he got. Likely September 1945, but at some point after he'd been approved for discharge, when he had enough of the ACR, I believe, the credits. And so he was honorably discharged from Camp Beale in California in August of 1946. 11 months difference. And he had spent some time in radio repair school at Camp Crowder in Missouri. Now, from what I've read up, that was also the training facility. So was he there before he went to California and then went back? That's why I'm waiting for his personnel record. So I'll be able to talk more about his actual timeline in service. Hopefully, at another point, it could take several months for that information. But I know Grandma visited him in Missouri at one point. My mom says she never went to California to visit him, so this must be Camp Crowder in this picture. I don't know if it's 45 or 46. He was up for a career move to West Point. That may have been why his discharge was delayed, but then he decided against it when they said that he had to do one more year in service. Like I said, I'll have more on that once I get the full records. But he did. His discharge paper said he had received the World War II Victory Medal, and we don't have that. But this is what we do have. And this is called the Victory Bracelet. And I was told that they received this upon U.S. victory in World War II, but it was actually a sweetheart bracelet. And the sweetheart line of memorabilia were things that family members and loved ones purchased for their service member to show that they thought of them, remembered them. And the victory bracelet, the V, indicates this is the 1945 production. It makes sense that he got the 45 version because he only served 45 to 46. And obviously Grandma got this one for him. He also had an ID bracelet, Always Faithful Alice, that she had for Grandpa. She also had other sweetheart gifts that I remember seeing a lot growing up. These pillowcases, and she had mentioned that they were from Grandpa's time in the Army, not realizing that she had bought them for him. Or maybe he bought them for her. She was never really clear on that, but she always had these on her pillowcases in the chair in her bedroom in Indiana, and that's particularly poignant in that my grandfather never lived in that house. They moved out to Indiana in '85. He passed away just as they were closing on the house. So that house was always just Grandma's, but she had Grandpa all over the place. As I said, he served 45 to 46, March of 45 to August of 46, and so he did have a 1-year service medal, and this is that service medal, the front and the back, and he had the little, I'm not sure what it's called, but the extra little piece that goes above it. One pin that I am completely uncertain about is this prop and wings. This was specific to Air Force and air pilot related service, and my grandfather was stationed in Petaluma at the Coast Guard base. It was their signal intercept base, but he did get discharged through Camp Beale, which is an Air Force base, or was at the time at least. And so maybe these were, my mom thinks maybe he traded something to someone on a friend on the base to get these, versus I'm not sure how true that is or how possible that would have been, you know, whether they allowed that. And but maybe it was because that's where he was discharged through, or maybe he did work there. Like I said, I'm waiting for his personnel record because there's some unanswered questions. And another one that turned out that I had misunderstood, I thought I understood, and I actually understood. So my grandfather's name was Edward, right? Name starts with an E. He has this pin with an E. I assumed it was his. It wasn't. This is an Army-Navy Production Award. And whether the E stands for electric or whether it was just something else and the reason for choosing it, it was probably my grandmother's. She worked for Western Electric to support the manufacture of materials used by the U.S. military. And she talked about that work a lot when I was growing up, and I never put it together until I read the back of that pin and looked up what it was. And so this is probably Grandma's for her work supporting the war effort while Grandpa was learning how to intercept radio signals in the Army. And I was too young to go to my grandfather's funeral. Like I said, he died in 1985. I stayed at a neighbor's house. My grandmother had this in her collection that I got from my mother last year. This was the letter from President Reagan, who was the President of the United States at the time when he passed. Like most veterans get, I was told he had a 21 gun salute. I do have the flag. My grandmother had it, and then my mother inherited it, and then my mother gave it to me. She'd kept it in a shadow box. This is the flag. It was a flag that had been on his casket at his burial and given to the family. Grandma passed in 2005, so my mom's had it since prior to that. And he does have a service plaque, so I've always kind of been aware of his service, but the memorabilia, like I said, the victory bracelet's something I remember from when I was young. I even took it to show and tell once at school because we thought it was really, really important. And but some of these other things, like his 1-year service medal and the ruptured duck, those are new discoveries for me, and they're very, very interesting. And I want to end this video with talking about this picture. It's Grandpa with his friends, and it names who they are. The Three Musketeers, from left to right: Roger Long, me meaning Edward Mertz, and Will Lamberson. That's my grandfather's handwriting. I recognize it. Maybe you're related to them. Drop me a line. There's a button in the text down below. You can send me a private message here on Substack. Also, if you know more about these medals, send me a line. And then something really cool, talking about my grandfather. I have a picture from 1928. 10-year-old Eddie Mertz.